particular day, exactly tenants and visitors?
I cannot say a number because there's 147 units in the building, and there are visitors, guests, friends. Actually, we used to send delivery people up. We don't send it anymore because of the COVID. But I cannot tell you a number. There's thousands of people probably.
Have you ever met Johnny Depp?
I saw him a couple of times.
Okay. Do you remember what Mr. Depp was wearing on any of those occasions?
Nope.
Do you remember what jewelry he had on?
Nope.
Do you remember what headgear he was wearing? If he was wearing a scarf or a hat?
No.
Do you remember whether Mr. Depp was wearing any makeup or eyeliner?
Nope, I don't remember. Nope.
You couldn't tell me one way or the other, right?
No.
Do you know whether Mr. Depp had ever been physically violent with Amber Heard? And by this I mean hitting, punching, throwing objects at her, kicking her, headbutting her. Do you know one way or the other whether Mr. Depp ever did that to Ms. Heard?
Nope.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp slam things around or be angry?
No, I have never seen him like that.
I'm going to ask you some questions now about Amber Heard. When did you first meet Amber Heard?
I believe she was dancing on the lobby. I met her at the front desk. I interact more with her sister, Whitney, I believe that's her name, and her good friend, Rocky. And but Amber, I only see him like once in a while when she was sometimes used to get packages.
Do you recall whether Ms. Heard became a resident sometime around March 2016?
Don't remember.
Could you tell me one way or the other?
I just can't remember. Like I said, it's been so long, I just don't remember. And like, I know you guys sent me the papers to review, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't want to review them because it's been so long. It's like, just don't want to deal with this anymore. Yes, I went through the witness statement, and it's everything that is written there. That's what I said.
Okay.
That was correct. That was accurate.
Okay.
That's why I signed it.
So during the time between 2015 and 2016, how many times would you say total that you interacted with Amber Heard?
For a whole year, I can give you a number. Because it could be like, probably I probably saw Amber for 3 times in one day. Probably I'll see like 5 times, or probably I will never see him for a whole week. So I don't have there's never been a routine.
Okay. How would you describe Amber Heard's interactions with you? Were they friendly? Would she smile at you? Would she talk with you?
She was really friendly. She always smiled. But we never had like a interaction as really close relationship, like I do with some of the other residents. She never told me any of her problems. She never stopped by and talked about her personal life. She never did that.
They're asking you about a date that you recall seeing Amber Heard on May 25th, 2016. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And you said, probably, I just can't remember the days. I've got a really bad memory for dates. Did you see that?
Yep.
So, Mr. Romero, would you at any time be able to remember what type of clothing Amber Heard was wearing from one of her events?
Nope, I don't remember.
Would you remember on any daily basis what type of hairstyle she was wearing?
Nope.
Would you remember on any type of basis what type of bag Amber Heard was carrying?
No.
Would you be able to say whether Amber Heard was dressed up or casual on any given day?
No.
Would you be able to say whether what type of makeup Amber Heard was wearing on any given day?
No.
Would you be able to say, for example, whether Amber Heard had on concealer or foundation on any given day?
No.
Would you be able to say whether Amber Heard had on blush or powder on any given day?
No.
Would you be able to say whether Amber Heard had a mascara or eyeliner on any given day?
No.
How about eyebrow pencil or lip pencil?
No.
Do you have any memories of Amber Heard wearing a particular type of makeup with a type of outfit?
No.
If you were asked to describe any characteristics of Amber Heard from 2 days earlier without knowing you were going to be asked, would you be able to testify to any of those? What she was wearing, what her makeup was, what her hairstyle was?
No, I probably won't remember.
When is the first time that you recall anyone saying anything to you about the police being called at the EC building because of a domestic dispute between Mr. Depp and Amber Heard?
Well, to answer your question, whatever happened, it happened on a Saturday. I don't work Saturday. When I got there on Monday, they asked me, "Oh, you heard what happened?" And I said, "No, what happened?" So that's how I find out. Then
Okay.
I went to the cameras and see what was going on. And as soon as I saw Johnny Depp on the camera on the elevator, just walking back and forward on the camera in the elevator, I said, "Okay, I know that was Tim," and that's all I knew. But I was not there on that Saturday when that happened. I believe that whatever that happened, they say it happened, and when they called the police, I believe it wasn't a Saturday, and I was not there.
Okay. Do you recall who told you that on that Monday following the Saturday?
Okay, Don, as a matter of fact, I think it was one of the residents that they approached to me, and they said there was a lot of noise because the person was working out on the gym that's next to the Penthouse. They heard a bunch of noise, and that's it. And that's why I checked the camera. And when I looked at the cameras and I saw Johnny, like I said, was just walking back and forward in the elevator. And I said, like, okay, all right, okay, no, I'll try to figure it out. And I didn't say anything more. I turned off the camera, and that's it.
So the first part of that, somebody was working out and heard noise?
Someone was working out on the gym and heard the noise. They heard a lot of noise on the hallway. Because it's really rare to hear anything because most of the time the penthouse level is really quiet.
Okay. Do you remember who the person was in the gym that heard a lot of noise in the penthouse that night?
That's correct. I do remember the person.
Who is it?
I remember the person. He's been a resident in the building for a long time. I just don't remember it. I don't remember her name.
And where is the gym in comparison to the penthouse that's owned by Mr. Depp?
Like I said, Johnny Depp owns all the penthouse on below the clock. The gym of the Eastern Columbia building is just in front of one of the penthouses. You actually can see it through the window.
You can see the gym through a window of the penthouse, or you can see the penthouse through a window of the gym?
You can see the gym through one of the windows to the penthouse, and they have a patio that leads to the gym. Penthouse has a patio to lead to the gym.
Okay. And this tenant, if you think of her name while you're, even if we're asking other questions, please let me know. This tenant, this is a resident there, right? That saw this?
Yeah, I believe her name is Shauna.
And so she told you she heard a lot of noise.
That's correct.
Did she describe anything, voices, any objects, anything like that?
No, she just said it was a noise. Not just noise. And she was just surprised because, like I said, it's always really quiet.
Okay. And so she wanted to know what happened. And so you went to the video cameras to look at video. How did you know when to look for them?
Because she got the time. She got the time that she was working out. That's why I figured out to track the time on the camera and look. And then when as soon as I saw, like I said, Johnny Depp walking back and forth in the elevator, I turned off the camera and I figured out, okay, this is what happened. I figured out, put one and two together, so I was okay.
When you said you figured out what happened after you saw Johnny Depp in the elevator, what did you figure out had happened?
I figured out that's why they call the cops, the police.
Because why?
Because of the noise that was on the penthouse level.
Mr. Romero, I'm going to ask you to look at, this is a video clip marked as Romero Exhibit number 8. It shows a date and time stamp near the bottom. Do you recognize this as the elevator at ECB building?
That's correct.
Mr. Romero, you're nodding. Is this the video that you remember looking at after Shauna told you that she heard the noise that night?
That's correct.
And that's Mr. Depp?
Correct.
Do you recognize the other two men in the elevator?
I recognize the guy in front of the elevator button. That's his personal bodyguard. The other guy, I've seen him before, but I never interact with him. If I did, I don't remember.
You said he looked agitated.
Yeah, he looked agitated. Like he was walking back and forward. He took his jacket. His body language was different than before. Most of the time, he's really calm. He's just like really happy person. Like this is the first time I saw him like that.
And then you go to the next. So then you say Wednesday, May 25th. At approximately 10:30, Ms. Heard walked into the lobby accompanied by Ms. Raquel Pennington. That's the person you called Rocky earlier. Do you remember her?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you said that Ms. Heard approached you to ask you for the key to her unit, which you gave her. And you said we did not discuss anything else at that time.
Correct.
Ms. Heard stood approximately 3 feet away from you. I did not notice any bruises, cuts, swelling, red marks, or any other injuries of any kind on Ms. Heard's face. Do you see that?
Correct.
Okay. But you weren't looking for bruises, cuts, swelling, red marks, or any other injuries on Ms. Heard's face that night, were you?
I was not looking for any marks or bruises or anything. But something like that, it will be really noticeable. But I guess, I wasn't not looking. I was more focusing on what my job duties was, like getting the key. And also I gave them the key and they were talking about, I told her, you know what, your dog, I was talking with Raquel because her dog got out of her unit. And that was one of my concerns. I would tell her, you know what, I saw your dog was outside. You didn't want me to get too close to it. So it's still out there. On the Penthouse area, the dog will be fine because it's not, like I said, it's always really quiet. And Mr. Depp owns everything up there, so it'll be fine. So that was one of my concerns. That was my job. I was just taking care of that. I was not trying to say, oh, let me see your face. No.
So, and that's where I'm going to follow up. Do you remember what Ms. Heard was wearing that night?
No.
Do you remember whether she was dressed up?
No.
Do you remember where she was coming from, that she was coming home at 10:30 at night with Ms. Penny?
No, I don't remember. They didn't mention to me. She was on the phone. She was with Raquel in front of me. We were talking about it, and then she left to the lobby where she was still on the phone.
So
I was focusing more on Raquel because I was telling about her dog.
Okay. Do you remember what hairstyle Ms. Heard had that night?
No.
Do you know what type of makeup Amber Heard was wearing that night?
No.
Can you tell me whether she was wearing concealer or foundation?
No.
Could you tell me whether she was wearing blush?
No.
Could you tell me whether she was wearing any kind of eye makeup?
No.
So who wrote the sentence, I did not notice any bruises, cuts, swelling, red marks, or any other injuries of any kind in Ms. Heard's face?
I'm pretty sure if I would have seen something like that, I would have said something.
Mr. Romero,
I didn't saw any marks or bruises on her face. I don't recall. Just don't saw anything. She was just standing in front of me.
I'm asking specifically, I did not notice any bruises, cuts, swelling, red marks, or any other injuries of any kind to Ms. Heard's face. Who wrote that?
That's what I said. I didn't saw any marks or bruises on her face. That's what I said.
But
because they asked me if I remember seeing anything, and so I just don't recall seeing any marks or bruises because she was just sitting in front of me. I just don't remember seeing anything. Just don't remember. If it would have been so obvious, like someone had like a black eye, I would have like, whoa, I would have seen that and I would have remembered because it's something that you will see. Like so noticeable, like you will remember. But when I was there talking to her, she was like 3 feet away from me. She was right in front of me. I just don't remember seeing any marks, bruises, or anything.
But you don't know whether she was wearing makeup to cover it, do you?
No, I don't know. No. She was wearing any makeup to cover it, probably. You probably will cover any bruise, but you cannot cover the swelling.
Were you looking for swelling?
No. Like I said, I was not looking for anything.
In fact, you were spending more time talking to Rocky about her dog, were you not?
That's correct, but I gotta have it. When I'm talking to someone, I look into their eyes. And when I was talking to Amber and Rocky, I always look into their eyes. Okay. And I wouldn't notice like any swollen or bruise, like I said. I would probably notice.
Is it fair to say, Mr. Romero, that you can't say that Amber Heard had injuries or did not have injuries that day on the 25th?
I don't remember.
Okay.
And like I said, I would probably remember the swollen, but I didn't saw anything. I just don't remember.
And you don't remember seeing anything, right? But do you remember even looking?
I remember. I'm really sorry, but I remember. I gotta tell the whole story how they got there. Before they went and get the keys. They come down. They say somebody tried to get into my unit. There's scratches on my door. And like, I'm really sorry, but who will think is gonna get into your unit because they saw some scratches on the door, like 4 inches above the door, because the dog was scratching the door, was trying to get in, and they thought about someone trying to break into the unit. I said, in my head, I was like, you think someone's trying to get into your unit? There's scratches like 4 inches above the floor on your door. That was the dog trying to get into the unit. They were so afraid. Oh, someone's trying to get into my unit. They're like, oh, come on, really? And I actually, when they asked me to go inside the unit just to check room by room to make sure no one was there. So I did that. It's part of my job, make sure they're safe. But I didn't understand why they want me to do that. I don't know. I just so stressed out because of this. I just don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this court case. Everybody got problems, and I don't want to deal with this no more. I don't want to put this with any more words.
The interaction you just testified about with Amber Heard and Rocky Pennington, and talking about the dog and going up and checking out the penthouse, none of that was on video footage, correct?
That's correct. We don't have cameras in the video. We don't have cameras at the hallway. We don't have cameras on the hallway.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Romero Exhibit Number 1. It's a deposition that was taken of you on July 19, 2016. Now, that's approximately 2 months after the May 21, 2016 incident. Do you recall giving that deposition?
16, probably I did. I just don't remember.
Okay. I'm going to take you to page 35. A little bit more. And you were asked, this is the same incident that you're talking about now, okay? And it's talking about, okay, you spoke with Amber at the front desk, later saw her in the lobby, later went upstairs with her. It says the question at line 6. I just want to go back for a second here. You said several times in answer to my questions that you didn't recall seeing any marks on Amber's face. When you say you didn't recall seeing any of those marks, did you mean that you didn't see any marks on her face? And your answer then was, I say that because when I saw Amber, I was not looking to see anything on her face. I was not looking to see anything. Do you recall giving that testimony under oath back at that time, 2 months after the incident?
Yes, I remember, because like I said, I always make eye contact with someone that I'm talking to, but I'm not looking to find something like oh, your makeup is wrong, you haven't have changed your eyebrows, or your eyelashes are not even, or I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking at their eyes And I'm not looking for anything else. But if I see something, I probably will remember.
If you saw something, right?
Yeah, I would have probably would see, like, if she had a swollen, like if she was wearing makeup, probably would have seen the swollen. I probably would remember that. But I was not looking for anything. I was like, oh, you know.
How swollen was Amber on the 25th of May? How swollen was her cheek?
Well, according to the pictures I've been seeing right now that you're showing me, it was pretty swollen. I probably will remember that.
How many days later did you see her from that swelling?
That was on a Wednesday. That was from Saturday to Wednesday.
Right. How many days? Would it be fair to say that you cannot testify one way or the other whether Amber Heard was domestically abused by Johnny Depp on May 21, 2016?
I cannot say that. I would not agree to testify against anyone of domestic violence because I was not there. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I was not there. I was never there. I was probably hundreds of miles away and got no idea what happened that day.
And do you remember that there was pictures of wine, a glass of wine and bottle of wine stains on the floor outside of in the hallway of the Penthouse from May 21st, 2016?
I remember talking to Mark. I'm not going to say it was wine.
All right. Well,
I'm not an expert.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next portion of this deposition contains questions asked by counsel for Mr. Depp.
You sit here today. When you saw her at the front desk on March 25th, you didn't see any bruising, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't see that, correct?
That's correct. I didn't see any marks or bruises.
You didn't see any swelling either, did you, Mr. Romero?
That's correct. No swelling
And
at all.
she was only 3 or 4 feet away from you, correct?
Correct.
And you were looking right into her face squarely, correct?
Correct.
And the lighting was good at the front desk, correct?
Objection?
Correct.
It was so good that had she had any bruises, swelling, or marks on her face, you would have noticed that, correct?
That's correct.
And then later that same day, and you've testified to this already today, later that same day, you went up the elevator with Ms. Heard and Ms. Pennington in connection with their request for you to check the penthouse, correct?
That's correct.
And during that entire period of time, taking them up to the penthouse, walking through the penthouse, and then finally you leaving and going back to your desk, you looked at Ms. Heard during that time period, correct?
That's correct.
And you looked her in the face, squarely in the face, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't notice any swelling, correct?
Correct.
I'm sorry?
Correct. I didn't saw anything.
Did you see any swelling?
Objection.
No.
Did you see any bruises?
Nope.
Did you see any marks on her face of any kind?
No marks at all.
And again, just to repeat, when you were front desk looking her in the face, did you see any swelling on her face?
Nope.
See any bruises on her?
Nope.
Did you see any marks of any kind on her face?
No marks at all.
And how was the light down when you were at the reception and you were looking at her and didn't see any of this? How was the lighting?
The lighting is actually pretty good. It's not
how far
dark
apart?
at all. She was
How
3
far
feet
away?
apart. Approximately like 3 to 4 feet apart.
Were you looking her square in the face?
Correct.
Okay. And when you were up in the penthouse and you were looking her square in the face, how far apart were you from her then?
We actually were pretty close to each other. She was probably just next to me. she was telling me like, go into this room, so I need to pass right in front of her.
And do you recall seeing any bruises, swelling, redness, or any marks on Miss Heard's face on May 24th, 2016?
I don't see anything.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, the remainder of this deposition of this witness contains questions by counsel for Ms. Heard.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the video clips that Mr. Depp's attorney showed you. I'm going to ask you, first of all, Mr. Presidio showed you a number of video clips from May 24th. Do you recall that?
May 24th?
Yes.
Yep. No, it's Tuesday.
But in fact, you don't recall seeing Amber Heard on May 24th, correct?
I don't remember. I don't even remember what I got for breakfast.
Okay. Well, let's pull up exhibit number 1. Let's stay on page 17. That's a good place. This is your deposition from July 19, 2016. Do you recall that?
19? Yeah.
Okay. And that's...
That was 3 in the morning.
Okay. And it said here, did you work, so Saturday was the 21st. Did you work that day? No. Did you work Sunday, May 22nd? No. Did you work May 23rd? Yes. On May 23rd, while you were working, did you see Amber at any time? I don't recall seeing her. Question, did you work on Tuesday, May 24th? Yes, I did. And on Tuesday, May 24th, at any time, did you see Amber? I don't recall seeing her. Do you remember that being your testimony 2 months after the events?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't recall. I just don't remember.
Okay. And then while we're here, now, Mr. Presidio had you go through a number of video clips and ask you a bunch of questions about whether you saw swelling, whether you saw red marks, whether you saw all kinds of other things. But in fact, I'm going to ask you, and tell me if you need me to bring up the videos and replay them. Can you tell me what type of makeup Amber Heard was wearing in any of those videos?
No, I can't tell you. I didn't even know she was wearing any lipstick.
Can you
I
tell
don't
me?
know.
Can you tell me whether Amber Heard was wearing concealer in any of those videos?
No.
Can you tell me whether Amber Heard was wearing any foundation in any of those videos?
No, I can't tell you.
Can you tell me whether Amber Heard was wearing any blush in any of those videos?
No.
Can you tell me whether Amber Heard was wearing any powder in any of those videos?
No, but she looks really pale.
Well, do you know what shade of concealer or foundation or powder Ms. Heard uses or used at that time?
No.
Okay. So you don't know whether Ms. Heard was wearing makeup in every one of those video clips, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to try to move along. So the incident was May 21st, 2016. You saw her the night of May 25th, correct?
Correct.
You said you saw Amber Heard hundreds of times while she was there. Did Amber Heard treat you well, and was she friendly to you in each of these hundreds of times?
Yes. I'm not going to say no because she was really always nice.
All right, this is my last.
Be nice.
All right, this is my last question. You testified in response to Mr. Presidio's questions that you testified truthfully in all of these occasions. Did you testify truthfully to everything that you testified in response to my questions today?
That's correct.
All right.
I did.
All right. It's a good time to break for lunch. We'll just break a little early, so just don't talk to anybody, don't do any outside research, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock, okay? Thank you. All right.
And your answer under oath at that time was,
No.
I've not, right?
Sorry, I
isn't
hadn't
what
found
you
the
said?
page in time,
Okay, you said, no, I've not.
but I have
correct?
not.
Okay. Now, you also have never been asked to testify on whether an individual is being truthful in saying that they are a survivor of IPV. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you have never qualified as an expert to speak to whether a person suffered from IPV, intimate partner violence, or was a victim or survivor of IPV. Is that correct?
That's outside the task of a psychologist to determine whether an event occurred. We assess behavior, we assess mental status, we don't detect crimes.
So you have not been asked to testify to that, correct?
It's not something that occurs, so no, I have not.
And you were not ultimately asked to provide any opinions on that, correct?
No, I was not.
Okay. Now, you did not disclose in any of the designations or your report that you had met with and had dinner and drinks with Mr. Depp, did you?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Yes,
That
you did
confused
not
me.
disclose in any of the designations or in your report that you had dinner and drinks with Mr. Depp, correct?
I did not disclose that I was interviewed by the legal team, no.
I asked a different question. Are you trying to resist that you didn't have dinner with Mr. Depp and drinks?
I'm not trying to resist that, but it's not quite right.
You
What
did
you're
have dinner with
stating.
Mr. Depp, did you not?
I did, with
And
his
you had
legal
drinks
team
with
and
Mr. Depp, did you not?
And what?
You had drinks with Mr. Depp, did you not?
Drinks were served. This was over 2 years ago. I may have had a drink with dinner, yes,
In fact, you thought you had a mule something, right?
possibly.
Yes, okay. And you didn't disclose that you had met with Mr. Depp, Mr. Waldman, Mr. Chu, and Ms. Vasquez at Mr. Depp's house for 3 to 4 hours and had dinner and drinks, correct?
I did not disclose that. It's not significant to the report.
You don't think that's significant, correct?
I don't.
Okay, but you've never been asked to meet with a client in his counsel before being retained as an expert, either before or after, have you?
No.
And you justified that it was okay in this case because it was a high-profile case.
That's not quite right. I justified it in this case. Actually, I sought consultation about it. First of all, the person who had retained his attorneys was unable to come to my office with his attorneys. And yes, this is a very visible case. It's been going on a very long time. And I understood that there would be a need to interview me and make an informed decision about my qualifications.
Can you look at page 240, please? Line 3 is my question. Would you agree it's highly irregular to meet with the subject in a litigation? And your answer on that occasion was, I would not say it's highly irregular. I would say it's not something that I would typically do. However, I had not yet been retained on the case. This was a large, high-profile case, and I understood that I believed that it was appropriate for a person retaining me with such a high profile to meet me, to be able to vet me, essentially with the attorneys present prior to retaining me on his case. Do you recall that?
Yes.
That's what you said under oath, correct?
Yes.
And then I said, have you ever done that before? And you said, no. Correct? And then I said, have you ever done it since? And you said, no. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, would you agree that if you did not find something that would be in favor of Mr. Depp and negative to Ms. Heard, that you wouldn't be an expert in this case? They're not going to bring you into court if you're going to say that Ms. Heard is right and Mr. Depp is wrong, correct?
So as a forensic psychologist, my obligation is to the court, is to the fact finder. I present science regardless of what that science may be. Now, when I take a case, my retainer agreement is explicit about that, and I discuss
Dr.
that
Cree,
with the attorneys.
I'm asking you a question. I'd like you to try to answer my
Okay.
question. You understand that if you found favorably to Ms. Heard and negatively to Mr. Depp, you wouldn't be here, right? You wouldn't be testifying.
Objection speculative.
No, okay, sorry.
Hold on. The objection is speculation.
That's not speculation.
No, I'll sustain the objection if you want to ask.
Okay. If, it goes to bias, Your Honor.
I sustain the objection. Next question.
Okay, all right. You were, in fact, so excited about being involved in this case that you told your husband, even though this was a highly confidential matter, that you were going to be conducting the examination of Ms. Heard, didn't you?
That is not accurate.
You not only told your husband, but you told Ms. Heard that you told your husband, correct?
Ms. Bredehoff, that is not accurate.
What is accurate?
You're incorrect. That is not correct.
Is your testimony today under oath that you did not tell your husband that you were going to be conducting the examination of Amber?
That is my testimony.
Okay. Let's go to page 306. So the question that was asked was because you brought muffins, you said, from your husband, right? You gave those to Ms. Heard, correct?
May I clarify what occurred so that we can stop talking about the muffins? What happened was that I was getting ready that morning. I frequently bring muffins to the office. My husband did happen to know that there was going to be a celebrity client coming in because on the mornings that occurs, which often occurs, we have to actually clear the office and move the staff to the other office. So yes, on the one hand, he was aware of that. I was getting ready. I asked him to go to the bakery near our house and pick up the muffins for me because I was running late. He often has to do that because I often do run late. He brought the muffins back to the house. I brought them into the office. Ms. Heard and I enjoyed the muffins together. I think I made a comment to her along the lines like, we can thank my husband. My husband got these for us today, meaning he purchased the muffins. We are now enjoying them because of him.
Did you say on pages 305 and 306 that you frequently have examinations of high-profile clients? You want to just take a quick look and tell us?
What, 305, 306?
Yeah, that's where we're talking about it.
Is there a line you'd like me to look at?
You can start with 15, line 15, 305. Just read through that and tell me whether you said anywhere in there that you have a lot of high-profile examinations. You do this frequently.
Objection to improper impeachment.
I don't agree.
Won't you approach, please?
So why did your husband get the muffins for Amber Heard?
He did not get the muffins for Amber Heard.
He knew you had a high-profile client, and you were preparing for a very long time, and you asked him to pick up the muffins, correct?
I asked him to pick up the muffins for me, yes.
Okay. Now, would you agree that domestic abuse can be verbal?
Doing this 4-second method before bed reverses type 2 diabetes. Most people continue to take blood sugar medications because they've been brainwashed by the medical establishment to believe diabetes is a hereditary condition, even though new studies are showing this to be completely false. If you or your loved one,
or even on the test alone, you'd integrate other data.
All right. How did you administer the MMPI-2 to Ms. Hurd?
I provided her the test on an iPad. She essentially had her own little desk area and then an iPad. She hits start, it provides her with the instructions, and then it gives her 567 statements in order. For each one, she taps true or false.
What did you learn about Ms. Hurd from the results of the MMPI-2?
Quite a bit. I wrote up a 25-page interpretation outline. It has numerous scales. So one of the reasons I like this measure so much is that it can tell you so much about multiple different traits and tendencies and mental issues. One of the primary things I learned was that she had a very sophisticated way of minimizing any personal problems. I also learned that she tends to, well, there were a number of characteristics that were consistent with the eventual diagnoses, but some of the primary characteristics, and I'm going to try to condense 25 pages here, were essentially externalization of blame, tending to have a lot of inner hostility that is attempted to be controlled, a tendency to be very self-righteous, but to also deny that self-righteousness and to judge others critically against these sort of high standards for moral value, but also to deny doing that, essentially to claim that one is very non-judgmental and accepting and yet very full of rage, really. And these aren't facts, but her scores essentially correlated, so they were consistent with other people who obtained these scores who have been shown through many studies to have these very specific traits. So externalization of blame, a lot of inner anger and hostility, sometimes that anger among these groups with similar scores, these people might have that anger kind of explode out at times. They tend to be very passive aggressive. They may be self-indulgent, very self-centered. They could use manipulation tactics to try to get their needs met, very needy of attention, acceptance, approval. They tend to distance people who are close to them. Initially, they may seem very charming. They're very socially sophisticated, actually. That was a major component on there. They have a capacity to kind of offer some of their faults, but in a way, but only the ones that people think of lightly and can all relate to. And so they can present as very fair and balanced, but in actuality, they really might be very judgmental of others and unaware of problems in their behavior and their thinking.
So after you provide the examination via the iPad, what do you do? So
once they've completed the test, you can have it scored by the computer immediately. It's a very complex test to interpret, but right away you get a list of what's called critical items, and these are just some, a couple of the items, the statements that are presented that are more clearly symptom-based, and I always follow up with the examinee. Some of these might have to do with suicide, some of them might have to do with other symptoms that you just like to get a little bit more information on, because sometimes an examinee might tell you they're completely fine when you're doing your interview with them and that they have no symptoms, and then when they take the test, it says that they're having trouble sleeping, or they struggle with nausea all the time, or they feel very anxious, and so you want to follow up on that.
Okay. What's a code type?
A code type, let me think of how to explain this very simply. So the main scales, and I keep referring to scales, these are just the main scores that come up on this test. We can refer to them as codes, And when I was saying that Ms. Heard's scores could be compared to certain groups of people that had been researched before to obtain similar scores, the research has shown that certain people will have certain scores that kind of spike on this, okay? And so all of those traits that I was describing, those are traits that are found in these code types. So it means that score number two was high, and score number 6 was high. And so if we have those two scores were both high, then that's a 2-6 code type. And these code types...
What code type was Ms. Heard?
Ms. Heard had the clearest code type was 3-6, but then she also had some other code types that were less significant.
What characteristics are associated with a 3-6 code type?
So a 3-6 code type, a lot of that anger is expressed in this code type. There can be actually a lot of cruelty, usually with people who are less powerful. Actually, when you see this code type, you want to, if you can, to follow up with subordinates, co-workers, people who may have observed their behavior more closely. The 3-6 code type is very concerned with their image, very attention-seeking, very prone to externalizing blame to a point where it's unclear whether they can even admit to themselves that they do have responsibility in certain areas. A lot of suppressed and denied anger, but the anger is very present, will explode out, and a lot of issues in their close relationships.
How does Ms. Heard's code type fit in with your overall opinion as to personality disorders?
Well, this might be an appropriate time to describe a little bit about these personality disorders, because I think what you'll hear is that there's a lot of consistency there. So borderline personality disorder is a disorder of stability. It's instability, and it's instability in personal relationships, it's instability in their emotions, it's instability in their behavior, and it's instability in their sense of self and their identity. And that instability is really driven by this underlying terror of abandonment. So one of the key features also of this disorder, and all of it is like pistons of an engine kind of firing off and igniting one another. But when somebody is afraid of being abandoned by their partner or by anybody else in their environment and they have this disorder, they'll make desperate attempts to prevent that from happening. And those desperate attempts could be physical aggression, it could be threatening, it could be harming themselves. But these are behaviors that are usually very extreme and very concerning to the people around them. The anger is typically what, sadly, it's counteractive, right? So the thing these people fear most is being abandoned, but over time, the anger, the explosive anger that they show when somebody is needing space, or when somebody's really not doing anything wrong, because a lot of times they read into things that they perceive as being a slight to them or being somebody intending to harm them that actually isn't happening. They'll exaggerate it, and they'll explode. They'll react in this heightened manner that is just exhausting for their partners. Oftentimes their partners will try to make them happy at first and really allow themselves to be a punching bag, thinking that they can somehow solve this problem, that somehow they can make this better. And eventually it just overwhelms them. Histrionic personality disorder is very
Before
similar.
we move on to that,
Okay.
Are you familiar with the term emotional reactivity?
I am.
What is that?
So emotional reactivity is very common in the diagnosis. So essentially, like I said, there's instability in emotions. People with borderline personality disorder are often misdiagnosed as having bipolar disorder because they can be up and down. They can look very depressed, then they can look very elated, but these changes are happening within a matter of hours. Somebody with bipolar disorder, this is a clinical depression lasting days, weeks, a clinical mania where sometimes they even need to be hospitalized because they're so grandiose. They clear out their bank account and go to Vegas and spend it all. They're acting in some very bizarre ways. With borderline personality disorder, you're having these fluctuating moods constantly. And again, this hypersensitivity to being slighted or feeling offended, really driven by the fear that if you're offended or slighted, if the therapist comes in 2 minutes late, or if somebody shows up to dinner 2 minutes late, that they might be abandoning you. And it's not as if the borderline is considering themselves abandoned in that moment, but they just know that they have this overwhelming emotion, and there are no attempts to control that emotion. There are no attempts to regulate it. So if they're in the middle of the restaurant and they feel offended, they're going to start the fight. People are going to see it, or they might just start crying or break down, but they'll make a lot of accusations, and that reactivity is when you're going to see a lot of this escalation in the bizarre behavior. They can react violently, they can react aggressively, they will often physically prevent their partner from trying to leave if their partner wants to get space from all of this intense emotion, and oftentimes they will be abusive to their partners in these situations. Sometimes they'll physically restrain them from leaving and become injured that way, but also people with borderline personality disorder, it seems to be a predictive factor for women who implement violence against their partner. And one of the most common tactics that they'll use is actually physically assaulting and then getting harmed themselves. But mostly, we call this administrative violence. So essentially, this is saying that they'll make threats using the legal system. So they might say that they are going to file a restraining order or claim abuse, or they might do these things to essentially try to keep their partner from leaving. In the moment, again, they're not consciously thinking, I'm going to keep my partner from leaving right now. They're just thinking, I can't stand this. I hate my partner. They went from idealizing to suddenly devaluing because of the hurt, and they'll do anything to express that big emotion of anger.
Your Honor, may we approach?
All right, yes, sir.
Imagine this scenario. You buy a little-known cryptocurrency at $2.82 from a major exchange. The coin surges to $26.50 per coin, handing you a 9-fold gain. Sounds pretty good, right? But what if this happened instead? You buy the same cryptocurrency, but this time you buy it using a perfectly legitimate backdoor method for just 48 cents before the coin is listed on the major exchange. Instead of making only 9 times your money, you make 55 times your money. Is this really possible, or is it just a pipe dream? Well, if you know where to look and you have some money you can afford to risk, I assure you this is very possible, and I'll show you how it's done. My name is Martin Weiss, and I'm the founder of Weiss Ratings, America's #1 independent rating agency and the world's only financial rating agency that grades cryptocurrencies. So in our work, we come across all sorts of strange, off-the-wall, but legitimate ways to generate outsized returns from cryptocurrency markets. And this is one of those strange but legitimate ways. It involves what I call a hidden crypto exchange, a perfectly legal, perfectly reasonable method for buying undiscovered cryptos at far better prices before they're listed on the major exchanges. It kind of reminds me of pre-IPO investments in the traditional financial market. The difference is, with this method in cryptocurrencies, even average investors can participate. You don't have to be an accredited investor, nor do you need any special connections. And the best part is that you can tap into this backdoor method to find coins selling for mere pennies that have the potential for truly outsized
Okay. You indicated you were talking about emotional reactivity. What, if any, emotional reactivity did you observe in your review? And let's do this one at a time.
Okay. So there were a couple indications to me. First, I can sort of think about it with the treatment records. So particularly Dr. Cohen-Connell's, am I getting the name right? I feel like for some reason in my mind I might have just reversed it. But Dr. Cohen's records, I did reverse it. He actually refers to this reactivity quite a bit and to Ms. Heard's temper. And that temper, it's often branded, or being hot-headed, is really characteristic of borderline personality disorder, as is their very charming, personable nature. This is a disorder of contradictions. In Nurse Filati's notes, I thought there was something interesting. She references a night when they're out to dinner, I believe in London, and she provided positive reinforcement to Ms. Heard because Ms. Heard had been disappointed by a mistake made by the server, and it sort of references how previously she might have criticized the server or become upset by that, and that she didn't this time, and so that had been some sort of a step forward. And there was also an indication actually in Dr. Hughes's, Dr. Hughes is a forensic psychologist who had been appointed by Ms. Heard to conduct as an evaluation as well. In Ms. Hughes's interview of Ms. Heard disclosed that she had cut her arm in the past, which is a typical reactive type thing somebody with this diagnosis can do. It's one of the symptoms. And that's sort of all I can think of top of my mind from the treatment records. Moving into some of the declarations or deposition testimony, what struck me was Ms. Raquel Pennington's testimony. She's a former friend of Ms. Heard's, and she told a story about, I suppose they were shopping for Thanksgiving accoutrements, something to prepare for Thanksgiving, and Ms. Heard struck her in the face, sort of out of the blue, which is I thought was interesting because that is one of those signs of borderline personality disorder where if a friend or a loved one isn't meeting your needs in that moment, borderline personality disorder, things are in these extremes, this black and white, we call it splitting. And so that person goes from being idealized, the perfect person, to dumpster. They are totally devalued. They are the worst friend. They don't care anything about me. I have better people around. And then there will be a repair, because the person with this disorder does feel remorseful after they have these reactions, angry, tell their friend off. But over time, it wears away at these relationships. And so what you'll usually see is many transitions in their friendships over the years, people who have sort of fallen by the wayside, who were really very close-knit at one time, and then, but there's not a lot of consistency in the long term. You'll also see that with their intimate relationships, many relationships, but none that are particularly long-term.
How does borderline personality disorder relate to identity issues?
So again, that instability also travels toward identity. And when I was describing personality earlier, I was talking a little bit about those traits we have that help us know who we are. When you have borderline personality disorder, that actually is not something you understand. So people with this disorder actually take on the identity of the people they're spending time with because it's comforting. It's very uncomfortable to not know who you are. Some people with this disorder will describe a feeling of emptiness when they feel like they've been abandoned because now they don't know who they are in the world. And so when somebody with this disorder is going through that initial enmeshment phase with new people and they're idealizing them, they often will take on the identities of those people. So they may mimic them in a lot of ways. They might mimic the way they dress, their interests, the way they talk. And for this reason, the people around somebody with this disorder kind of from the outside may feel like, wait, I thought you were this way, now you're advocating for this, and this is your new main interest in life, or the thing you're throwing yourself into all completely. Music tastes might change, hobbies will change, the way they dress.
Okay. In addition to borderline personality disorder, I understand that you diagnosed another personality disorder. What's that?
So histrionic personality disorder, and these are really two sides of the same coin. They belong to the same cluster. We call these clusters. It's a way to organize personality disorders in that DSM. And this cluster is described as the personality disorders that are dramatic, erratic, and emotional. Okay, so unpredictable, but really having to do with emotions and relationships. They're very similar. Whereas I was saying that borderline personality disorder, a lot of the key features that you're going to notice are instability. When it comes to histrionic, a lot of the key features are going to be drama and shallowness. Similarly, with borderline personality disorder, there's this underlying drive of avoiding abandonment. With histrionic personality disorder, that underlying drive is to always be the center of attention. Because if you don't have that attention on you, it feels similarly to borderline personality disorder. You feel pretty empty, like you don't have that sense of being or of value, okay? So whereas borderline personality disorder might have more of the visible reactivity if somebody seems to be leaving, with histrionic personality disorder, what you're going to see is extreme discomfort with not being the center of attention, extreme efforts to be the center of attention, and when they feel that they're not the center of attention, you will see some strange things, making up stories to try to get attention, often taking on a victim or princess role. Those two roles in particular are pretty consistent. Seeking caretaking. Borderline personality disorder is similar because with borderline personality disorder, these shifts of identity and the splitting, you might see somebody go from being, in the DSM it describes it as a needy supplicant of help, seeking the perfect caretaker, to suddenly being the avenger against injustice or thinking that their partner is a terrible person. With histrionic, what you'll see is somebody who wants to be the center of attention, has sort of that impressionistic speech, very flowery, very enthusiastic, but nothing's really being said. The moment your attention wears away because they're so demanding for attention, that's when they might take the victim role or the princess role and even make up stories. Sometimes those stories are to bolster the victim role. Sometimes those stories are just to make them look more interesting or accomplished in their mind so that they can get respect and attention that way.
Is there a relation between histrionic personality disorder and attractiveness?
There is, strangely, and this is always one of the trickiest things to talk about because how is that a symptom? But characteristically, people with this disorder are very, very interested in looks, but more importantly, they utilize their looks to get that attention, to get that respect that they're seeking. And so this type of anybody, characteristically, they actually couldn't even be subtly, and when I say flirtatious, I'm not talking overtly sexy, but kind of inappropriately flattering. Sometimes they act in a kind of a girlish way to be cute and to engender attention. And this will even occur in their therapy relationships as a way to sort of avoid getting negative feedback or criticism. Oftentimes they'll bring the therapist gifts or be distracting if they engage in therapy because they just don't want any criticism. They want the therapist to like them.
Does the intelligence of the affected person bear on the manner in which these disorders present?
Excuse me, I choked a little on my water. Yes, and I think one way to think about it that's probably a little more accurate than just intelligence is, in psychology, we would describe this more as sophistication. So street smart, so to speak. The way, for instance, I've had many clients who have borderline personality disorder who are messy and really clearly suffering, and they might be difficult and all over the place and yell at you in the middle of a session, but it's so, it's not tailored. It's so much easier to work with because of that just openness and rawness of it, genuineness. Sometimes you'll have a more sophisticated presentation. There are 9 symptoms and only 5 have to be met. So there are a lot of different combinations and different ways it can present. And sometimes you'll have more of a petulant version of this where it really shows when you push the button and you're kind of, whoa, what was that? So somebody who's really productive, high functioning, successful, and you get to know them and you think they're fantastic because they're so interested in you too. And you might not realize it, but they're mimicking you perfectly. So you're really just kind of falling in love with this new friend who is being you. But then all of a sudden, you say something that they think is offensive, and you can't, even in your wildest thoughts, understand how that could have offended somebody, but their reaction is so strong that you kind of buy into it. Gosh, maybe I did say something offensive, and you feel bad about it. So that sophisticated version, they can be a little bit more calculated in the way they present. They tend to kind of hit you where it hurts a little bit more, and they can be actually very, very destructive.
What conclusions were you able to draw about Ms. Hurd's sophistication from her testing?
Well, from her testing and from her presentation, she was very likable, but her testing in particular showed that she approached it in a manner that, remember I told you about those scales that are pretty neat. She approached it in a manner that very clearly minimized any psychological dysfunction, not just that, but really presented herself as free of any problems. And she did so in a way that was very, very sophisticated, not obvious, by responding to questions that most people might not notice were trying to detect that.
How did you determine that?
So that's based on a particular scale on the MMPI-2 that is designed specifically to detect a type of responding that's a little bit more clever, a little bit more sophisticated, minimizing problems in a way that most lay people probably wouldn't understand, and even providers, very difficult to detect.
You mentioned that one of the characteristics of borderline personality disorder is emotional reactivity. How might that present in an intimate relationship?
So I think it probably presents mostly, or you'd see the bulk of it in intimate relationships because of that regular interaction and the desire for your partner to meet all of your needs, to be the perfect caretaker. Also that the hallmark of the disorder with the splitting, so idealizing, devaluing, and the perceiving of all sorts of neutral events as somehow demeaning or disrespectful. It's regular escalations of anger, frustrated complaints, criticisms of your partner. But because the person with borderline personality disorder, first of all, they're more sensitive to things. They feel distress more strongly, and then that distress lasts longer. So these types of blow-ups go on forever, and they're very cyclic. It feels like you just can't get a resolution, and eventually the partner will try to leave, will want to leave to take a break. It wears them down, and that's when the borderline might explode and act very aggressively or violently to try to prevent them from leaving.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 343. And for the record, this is an audio recording. It's quite lengthy, so we intend to play certain portions of it.
Okay. Any objection?
No objection, other than we'd just like to know what minute, second portions they're going to play.
Okay, but the entire audio is in evidence, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And no objection? Okay, all right,
And
343 in evidence.
If you'd like me to read the specific minutes now, or we can provide it to counsel afterwards.
Hey, if you want it now, or as you go, or, okay.
We intend to play minute 25, 37 seconds through 26, 28, 1 hour and 57 minutes, 21 seconds through 1 hour, 58 minutes, 54 seconds. 2 hours, 38 minutes, 52 seconds through, 2 hours, 38, 52 seconds through 2 hours, 39 minutes, 43 seconds. And then 2 hours, 46 minutes, 1 second through 2 hours, 47 minutes, 20 seconds. Those are 4 clips.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to publish that in jury? It doesn't matter. It's just audio. It doesn't matter.
Something to you, that it was okay. That's the promise you gave me a little while ago. I'm telling you, if you lost memory last night of kicking me out the door with the fucker hitting me,
Again,
and
sorry.
and your memory is gone from you kicking the bathroom door and hitting me in the skull as I was bent down.
I am
Wait,
sorry.
if you have those memory fucking, divots.
I was upset. There was a lot going on,
okay,
and I was on an Ambien. Like,
Okay,
why are you obsessing over the fact that I can't remember it the way you remembered it? I said I was sorry. I didn't deny
know
it.
that. I'm not talking about that. What I want. No, it's not to get you mad. It's just to get out of a bad situation while it's happening before it gets worse. In Australia, when we had the big fight where I lost the tip of my finger, at least 5 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms I went to.
To avoid talking to me, to
To
avoid
escape
working
the-
it out. That's
to
the
escape
problem.
the fight.
You don't escape the fight. You escape the solution.
No.
You escape the solution.
No.
You escape figuring it out. We cannot work it out if you run away to the bathroom every time.
Listen to me. Listen to me. A boxer can't go 12 rounds without a fucking minute break.
I'm not giving you a minute break. You do it at minute 3 at the beginning of an argument.
No. There are rounds, man. And when it gets too fucking hairy, the ref splits them apart or whatever. But all I'm saying is, you can't have a solution if the argument just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting and mounting. I fucking go into the bathroom and sit on the floor. Bam, 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 here you come. I come out. Fight, crazy, escalated. I go split again, I go to another fucking bathroom or a bedroom or something. Knock, 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 bang, bang, bang. You kept coming to get me. I'm not the one who fucking throws fucking pots and
Those are different. That's different.
fucking else at me.
That's different. That's one does not negate the other. That's irrelevant. It's a complete non sequitur. Just because I've thrown pots and pans does not mean that you come and knock on the door. Just because there are vases does not mean that you come and knock on the door.
Really, I should just let you throw.
I'm not saying that. You're saying that. You're putting words in my mouth and then making non sequiturs.
I'm giving you a situation.
No, you're trying to justify how you don't or do come to the door based on whether I throw pots and pans. It's irrelevant.
No, I'm justifying how you seem to think that there's this cowardice in me that runs away and I don't fight for you.
And you're justifying that by saying I throw pots and pans? Okay, cool. Let's talk about everything you do wrong.
I'm not the one who... I said to Travis, I said to you, hey, tell Travis what just happened.
You told me to do it. You told me to. You said, go do that.
I said, no, tell him what just happened.
And I lied.
And that you punched me in the
You're right.
fucking thing. And
You figured it out.
And you said, no, fuck it. No, I didn't. What the fuck are you talking about? And I
didn't
watched
punch
you lie. And then
I didn't punch you, by the way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, even a lot of fights have been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you fucking have a close...
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not fucking deck you. I fucking was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you talking?
What am I supposed to do? Do this? I'm not sitting here bitching about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby.
Because you started...
You are such a baby! Grow the fuck up,
Because you
Johnny!
started physical fights?
I did start a physical fight.
Yeah, you did, so I had
Because,
to get the fuck out of there.
Yes, you did. So you did the right thing, the big thing. You know what? You are admirable.
Mr. Depp, could you please explain to the jury what they just heard on those audio recordings?
What was just played on the audio recordings was very much the tone and the aggression and the attitude and the need for a fight from Ms. Heard, that was, I don't know if that was some need for attention, but I don't, that was a sound that I had gotten very used to. The squabbling, the you know, the raising of the voice to essentially excommunicate anything that I had to say about the situation. But then, and I do remember that incident. I believe that's from the when I was in the bathroom, and I was in fact taking a shower, and this was in Penthouse 3, and she came banging on the door, banging on the door, banging on the door. I didn't answer. I was in the shower. I couldn't deal with it. I didn't want to deal with any more of that sarcastic, demeaning, aggressive, violent, toxic spew. And so I was taking a shower and I didn't want to answer the door. She kept banging. And then I finally got out of the shower and I opened the bathroom door about just that much, just so I could have a good hold on the door in case she tried to burst in. And I was right, she did. Bathroom doors go in. She was pushing all her weight on the door, trying to get in. And I was pushing back because I didn't want to let her in, because I obviously didn't want the confrontation. She was not in the best of moods, you can hear. So when I was pushing the bathroom door, trying to close it, and was almost closed, she suddenly kind of yelped in pain. And she screamed out, "Ow, my toes or my foot or something." And so in that second, I thought possibly her foot had gotten caught under the door, which would, of course, not feel great on the foot or the toes, so I thought she was maybe injured. So I knelt down to have a look. The door was still, it was still pretty well about that much open. And when I knelt down on my hands and knees to look at her foot to see the injury, she kicked the bathroom door into my head. She kicked the bathroom door into my head, and I was completely taken aback by such a corrosive, horrific move. So I stood up, and I believe I stood up, and at this point the door was open. I stood up and I said, I think I said, "What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that?" And the next move was just a bang, and just she clocked me in the jaw. And That was another shocker.
How
So
long after that did you start recording?
Sorry?
How long after that did you start recording that audio recording that we just heard?
That audio recording was about her trying to make less of what had happened. In fact, trying to make less of what had happened by repeating some story to me that didn't make any sense, and it certainly didn't make any sense since I was there and I was the target. So I wanted some confirmation from someone with some semblance of a mind that could understand what was happening. I wanted Mr. McGivern to come up, and I asked her to tell him what had just happened. And her answer was essentially, I don't know what he's talking about. Nothing happened. He's fine. And once again, I told Mr. McGivern, time to leave the premises.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you now what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 162.
Okay.
You can stay.